Hi everyone, I don't know if I've mentioned this on my channel yet, but your girl is moving by the end of June, and last time I moved out of any place, which was my dorm, it was a lot. So I've learned from my mistakes and I'm going to start kind of packing up and doing a lot of stuff early. It is now February 19th, and I was thinking I have a ridiculous amount of just kind of extra fabric. I have a bunch of remnants, I have a bunch of like fat quarters and things. And I've been trying to think of what to do with all of this stash, because I have a couple of like stash busting ideas. One of them might turn into another video, haven't decided yet. But right now, oh hi Lils! You wanna come say hi? Or are you just telling me that there's only like a little bit of food left, so clearly you're gonna starve? Yeah, you just want food? Well, I'm kind of busy, I'm doing something right now. What? I'll come feed you in a minute. You have food in your bowl. There is food in your bowl. Anyway, so I was thinking, since I have a ridiculous number of shoes, shoe boxes take up a lot of space. There's a lot of empty space in shoe boxes, and most of my shoes I bought really cheap, so I don't really care if they kind of get crushed. So I was thinking what I could do with some of my extra fabric is make little bags for all of my shoes, because I have a couple little bags for some of my like character and ballroom dancing shoes. What are we doing? Those are my shoes. So the point is, I'm going to try to go through my stash and I'm going to count how many pairs of shoes I have, what kind of bags, like shape and size that I would kind of need. I do have a couple of pairs where the individual like shoes in the pair have to be bagged separately because they either have rhinestones glued all over them, or something else kind of going on, and one shoe might scratch the other, so I have to bag them separately. So I'll have to look for enough fabric to make two matching pouches for them. So I'm going to go through my stash of both my shoes and my fabrics so that I can kind of get an idea of what I have and what I can work with. And yeah, I'll let you know what I come up with. So you got so much to say, but when I turn the camera on you, you don't care. You got nothing to say, huh? All right, fine, I'll go feed you. Oh, that's a big yawn. All right, so I got all my shoes out so that I can look through them and see how many pairs I have. So cue the shoe montage. Space and changing the chords to make this more interesting, or at least more weird. Here's more of me trying on all my shoes, which is not the content any of you signed up to see, but you're getting it anyway because I want to. I don't know much about songwriting, so what I looked up on Google was some common chord progressions in the key of C on the ukulele, even though it's kind of technically pronounced ukulele. Sometimes I pronounce it wrong just to make people angry. I don't really remember what I wanted to say because I made it all up and then didn't write it down. So in my brain, the music ran away. Now what was I supposed to sing about? Something about shoes and capitalism. How it's bad, but I can't say that, or my mom will probably cut me off, because even though I I was raised super right-wing and conservative. I grew up to be such a liberal, almost commie. The only thing I know about how this song will sound is that it will be edited poorly. I have a lot of skill sets, but audio engineering is not one of them. I like to sing, I'm not very good at it though. I spend a lot of time singing to myself. I narrate everything I do when I do dishes and take out the garbage, and I sew and drive. I do a lot of singing when I drive. Wanna talk a little about fast fashion now, and mostly just how it sucks. It exploits a lot of laborers in poor countries, and a lot of child labor goes into everything. But I am a sucker for cheap, fancy shoes, especially when they sparkle or shine. I don't have a rhyme here, want to do better right now going forward. So here I am, and I say I'm not going to buy any more useless shoes that I will never wear. But I know myself, and that's never going to happen.
The sad part about this isn't even everything. This is just like the fancy shoes and the ones that I want to like protect, because I still have a bunch of like tennis shoes and casual shoes that I wear like every day. These are just the ones that are gonna get packed away. And I have some more that I didn't feel like digging out. Oh my god, how did I get into this mess? Alright, so let me talk you through what I think I'm gonna have to do. So what I'm imagining happening is I'm gonna basically have to make a rectangle, and this will be the generic bag. But I'm gonna need to make it wide enough across that this, if you divide it in half, gets turned into like 2 squares. And then what I'm gonna have to do is find this like halfway measurement, cut out another piece of fabric, and that's gonna get sewn on probably just here. So this will have to be like folded over and finished. And this will be left free for now because I'm gonna attach this flat. So it'll kind of make like a pouch here, and then when I like fold this over and I sew down this seam and sew up this seam, then from the top it'll look like I have a pouch that has like 2 compartments in it, and I think that's gonna work. Alright, I'd call that a success. Look, I have a little bag and it all ties, and it ties, and here's my drawstring, and if I pull it and open it up, I have 2 shoes in here, and they're separated, and it's hard to tell because it's dark in there, but I promise they're in there, and there's a little partition. So now that I have successfully figured out how to make this, I'm going to show you how to do this in a more like tutorial style. So let's go do that. Okay, so I have these 2 cuts of fabric, and I'm going to do 2 different things with them. So this bigger cut, the planets, I'm going to sew up exactly the same way as I did the other bag. I'm going to change one thing when we get to installing the drawstring though. And then this one, these little farm animals, I'm going to make a little bit smaller. This is going to be for a pair of my Oxfords. So I'm going to show you a couple little variations and a couple different things you do and a couple different sizes that you can do. Okay, so for this big one, I'm going to cut 2 rectangles. So the first one is going to be 32 inches long and 16 inches tall. And the second one is going to be 16 inches long and about 12 inches tall. And then for the second one, the smaller one, I'm going to cut also 2 rectangles. The first one is going to be 24 inches long by 16 inches tall. And then the other one is going to be 12 inches long by 12 inches tall. Alright, so now we're going to consolidate and we're going to do a couple steps at once. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your smaller rectangle and you're going to finish off this top edge. Now, depending on how you're able to cut your fabric and what kind of cut of fabric you're working with, you may be able to cut this on the selvage, which is this finished edge. So if you cut it on the selvage, you don't have to worry about this step. And I was able to do that for the Jaws bag that I made. Wasn't able to make it fit for this one, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do, since I did not cut this edge, is I'm actually going to take my pinking shears. So you'll notice that this side is kind of triangular. These are pinked, so this is really helpful and is going to help it not fray over time. So I'm just going to pink the edge very closely. I'm just going to cut. I'm not going to take a whole lot of length off. Then I'm going to fold this over once, pin it down, and sew. So that's going to finish this off and make it nice and even so that it won't fray over time. Also, while we're doing that, what you're going to do is you're going to take your ribbon, cut approximately 6 inches. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, I was able to cut one of the long sides, or one of the short sides of the big piece on the selvage. So this is nice and finished, so I don't need to worry about that. If you had to cut this seam, and you have cut seams or cut sides on both sides, then you're going to want to finish off both of them. And you can do this with either ribbon or tape, bias tape if you'd like. Since I'm using ribbon, I'm actually going to take a lighter real quick and singe the edges. This is going to melt the polyester so they won't fray. And now I'm going to take this edge that I had sewn, and I did pink this edge, so I don't really need to do this, but since this is going to be where the drawstring is going to attach and go through, there's going to be a lot of friction here. So just to give a little extra level of protection, I'm going to fold the ribbon in half. This ribbon is, how wide is this? 1.5 inches. So I'm going to fold this in half, and I'm just going to finger press this real quick. So I'm just going to kind of use the heat and the force of my own hand just to get a really quick little press in here. And now I'm going to take this and pin the ribbon on either side of this. You don't have to worry about this top edge being unfinished. This is going to get rolled in, so don't worry about it. I'm just trying to finish this seam so that when I roll it in and underneath, you don't have any raw seams over here. They're all going to be on the inside. Okay, so here's what this looks like now that it's pinned. You can see I have the ribbon pinned onto the unsalvaged side. The salvage side over here, I didn't need to. And also on this kind of inner flap, I have this pinned over. Now I want to take a second and just kind of say that if you don't have pinking shears and you weren't able to pink the edges like this so that they won't fray, I really would recommend doing a rolled kind of hem here so that all of the rough edges are tucked away and they won't be exposed. And the reason for that is this seam, especially up here, this kind of like top 3 inches over here, and also right here on this top of this little pocket, those are going to have a lot of friction, so there's going to be a lot of things rubbing on them. So up here, this is where the drawstring goes, so there's going to be a lot of friction from the drawstring, and up here, this is where it kind of divides, so your shoes are going to be in and out, and your hands are going to be in and out. So if you don't have this properly finished, it's going to start to unravel and it's going to start to fall apart. So I just really recommend go ahead and make sure that these are really nice and finished in a way that they won't fray. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this. So I'm going to use a straight seam here, and I'm going to sew kind of close to this pinked edge, but not too close. I don't want to accidentally sew off of it because that'll be a weak point. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a zigzag stitch up here, really for no other reason, but in my mind, it makes me feel better. It makes me feel like it's more secure. I don't know if there's any actual basis to that, but makes me feel better, makes me sleep better at night. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, I have everything sewn. Let me clip that real quick. So should have mentioned earlier, this is a project that's going to have a lot of visible top stitching, so if that's something that you don't like, you might want to consider kind of doing this as a lining and then making another pouch to go on the outside, but I really am not bothered by it, and I think that's way too much work for what we're trying to do here. So, what you're going to do is you're going to turn this right side down, so you're looking at the wrong side, and now, this is how I did the first bag, but I had another idea, and we're going to try something different on the other one. But we're going to do exactly the same thing that I did on the first one and this one. So I'm going to fold this in half, and I'm going to find the midline, which is right here. Now I'm going to open this back up. And now that I've found that midline, just going to kind of make a couple little pins right here to mark this. All right, so now what I'm going to do is take the smaller rectangle, and I'm going to do the same thing, fold it in half to find the midline. And if you find when you're doing this that you didn't cut your rectangles absolutely perfectly, that's fine. It really doesn't matter. Everything's just going to kind of get scrunched up anyway. So it's all right if you are a little bit off. So I'm going to mark the center line of this. And at this point, it really doesn't matter if you do this face up or face down. It's gonna turn out the same no matter what. You're basically gonna turn this into a giant tube. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up these center points as best as I can. And I'm going to pin down these two sides. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so now for this one, the farm animal one, I'm gonna do something a little bit different because I had the idea I might be able to do less work and get a better result. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this small piece and I'm going to line it up right here. And I'm not even going to bother sewing this down because we're going to sew this seam later, which is kind of the lazy thing to do. I probably should sew it down. But now I'm just going to pin this side all the way up. And then I'm going to sew just this one side. And then when we're done with that, we're going to install the drawstring, which if you want to watch ahead, you can definitely consolidate those two steps so you can just do it all at once while you're sitting down at your machine. But I'm going to sew this up and then come back so I can kind of break this down for you because I have two different ways you can install the drawstring. Alright, so now it's time to prep for the drawstring. So for this one, the farm animal one, I'm going to finish this off with regular ribbon, or at least that's the plan. I haven't checked my stash to see if I actually have enough ribbon, but we'll pretend that I do. So this is going to be really simple. We're just going to do kind of a rolled hem. I don't know if hem's the proper word, but since this is a quilting cotton and it behaves like it should, and for the most part it kind of sticks where you put it, I'm not going to do like kind of a double thing where sew this and then or pin this down and sew it and then come back and pin it down again. I'm just going to roll it right here. And I'm just eyeballing probably about 1/2 inch. Doesn't need to be super precise at this point. So I'm just going to roll and pin all the way down. So here's what that looks like, all nice and neat. And you'll see on this side we have no unfinished edges, which is going to be really nice when we thread everything through. So this is just going to get sewn on with a straight stitch all the way down. Super easy. You want to get really close to this edge, otherwise you're not going to have enough room to pull the ribbon through. So that's going to go on just like normal. We're not worrying about it. But for the next one, we're going to do something a little different. So for this one, the outer space one, we're going to be using nylon cord as our drawstring, and I learned when I was making the other one that nylon cord is really a pain to thread through from one end to the other. So we're going to kind of sew it into this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold this over by 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to pin all the way down. All right, now since this is nylon, I'm also going to go ahead and just really quickly burn the ends to prevent them from fraying. And I wanted this piece of cord to be about 3 inches on either side longer than the top of this. So this is 32 inches long. So 3 inches on each side is 6. 32 plus 6 is 38. So this is cut to 38 inches long. So I'm not going to worry too much about getting exactly in the middle. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it, because with this little amount on either side, you're going to be able to do it pretty easily. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this cord, and now I'm going to fold this over. And I'm going to make sure this cord is really kind of tucked into the far side so that when I sew through it, I'm going to be sewing close to this near side and I won't have to worry about going through the cord. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this if you're working with ribbon. Mostly because ribbon is very flat, so it's going to be really easy to accidentally sew through it without realizing it. And if you accidentally sew through this, then the drawstring isn't going to work anymore. It's just not. So you're going to want to do this, or if you choose to do this method, you're really going to want to either really trust yourself and have a lot of faith in yourself and use tiny ribbon and big seam allowances, or just use something like this cord, which is 3D, and you're going to feel it. Also, if you accidentally get it under your presser foot is physically going to move up because it is so thick. So you're going to notice if you're getting close to it. So now you might be thinking, Sam, what are you thinking? 3 inches on either side, that's really not a whole lot of leeway, and we all know the horrors of drawstrings and the hoodie strings, and you know, you pull a little bit too hard and it comes out the other end and you have to like completely undo it and redo it. Here's the thing. So here's a little trick I just figured out in the last one I made. Another thing you can do is once you get this sewn on, don't touch this yet, don't worry about this yet, you're going to find the center point of your bag and just stitch straight through. Just straight through it. And if this is secured right here, there's really no way for this to get pulled further inwards. So you're not going to have to worry about it, and then you can have a shorter drawstring so that when you pull everything close and pull everything smaller, you won't have a ridiculously long drawstring at the end. And that's something that I also will probably do for the ribbon, hypothetical ribbon. I still haven't looked to see if I have enough. But that is a really simple little trick you can do, and if you do it kind of in this back section as far away as you can from either end, it won't affect actually pulling things through at all, and it'll still be a very functional drawstring, but you'll never have to worry about accidentally losing an end. So part of the reason we did the drawstring now instead of waiting until the end was it's so much easier to sew this just kind of on a straight shot than having to worry about it kind of being rounded and then you're fiddling with your machine, and it's just easier to do it this way. So now what we're gonna do is actually form the bag. So what you're gonna do is put right sides together, fold your bag in half, and like you see here, it didn't have everything like perfectly lined up. That's okay. So I'm actually going to I'm going to leave this first like 1.5 to 2 inches open. And I'm going to pin here, and then I'm going to back tack here, and I'm going to start stitching here. And if you're making like a smaller bag, it's going to be easier to kind of open and get in there physically, but for a bag that opens this wide, it's really not that big of a deal. But if you're making a smaller bag that you need to fit like bigger things into, then yeah, you'd want to go ahead and make this a bigger opening. So you're just going to pin this all the way down. And I'm also going to pin the bottom. Now I'm not going to pivot here. I'm just going to go ahead and sew straight down, stop, and then restart over here. Just again, in my mind, it seems like it would make for a stronger seam. I don't know if there's any actual like practical backing to that, but that's just how I feel. So that's what I'm going to do. Now for this one, remember we only sewed down one side of that inner pouch. So this time we're just gonna kind of take the time when we fold this over to make sure that when we're pinning and we're sewing, we are also sewing through the other edge of this pouch. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna start sewing about 2 inches down. Above this though, I wanna make sure this kind of gets really secured into this seam. Now, if you cut this on the selvage edge like I did, you might have a little bit of, you might see it a little bit on the right side when you have everything turned the correct way out. If that bothers you, just make sure that you sew past the selvage, or if you want to kind of inch this over a little bit so that you have a bigger seam allowance on that side than the other. It really doesn't bother me. Again, not a whole lot does, as you will see by the incredibly visible top stitching, and I'm about to completely switch thread colors. Because I really don't feel like winding a bobbin. And I'm just going to do the same thing. We're going to sew up the side, stop the seam, start it again, and sew up the bottom. Alright, so I thought I was doing this on camera, but not. So now that the bag is sewn up, I'm going to go ahead and thread the drawstring through. So I cut a piece of ribbon to be 30 inches long. Same thing, I wanted 3 inches on each side. This was 24 inches long, so makes a nice 30 inches. Alright, so I went ahead and burned the edges. Oh, this one didn't burn that well. So I'm just going to burn the edges of the ribbon, make sure that they won't fray, and now I'm going to go hunt for a safety pin so that I can show you the trick to threading drawstrings through with the safety pin. Yes, there is a little bit of a trick to it. Okay, found a safety pin, had to take it off of the shark shorts that I made a long time ago that I never actually altered. So here's the trick. So when you're threading it through with a safety pin, if you slide the ribbon to this back end, then when you're sliding things through the safety pin, you know, you're squeezing, you're maneuvering. If you accidentally pop this open, you're done. That's it. You basically have to cut everything out and redo everything. And that's not a lot of fun, and we don't like doing that. So what you're gonna do is thread it through this way. So that even if you pop it open, you can still push through because you'll be pushing kind of this way. The way I like to describe it is shark denticles, which makes no sense to anybody who's not a marine biologist, but shark skin kind of looks like sandpaper in that there's little teeny tiny little hooks, so that when the water flows this way, the shark feels really smooth and there's really hydrodynamic and it helps them swim really fast. But if water swims this way, it kind of gets caught in there. So that's why if you ever like go to an aquarium and they have a touch pool and you can touch a shark, if you rub them the wrong way, you're rubbing up against those little denticles, and that makes it feel really rough and really like sandpaper. So it's kind of the same thing, sort of, if you kind of get where I'm going with this. So if you just lead with this end of the safety pin all the way through, then even if it pops open, you don't have to worry about it catching on anything. You just keep moving forward and you'll reach the end really easy. So I'm going to do basically the same thing. So I'm going to feed this through, and I'm just going to push this through the same way you would normally with a safety pin and a ribbon and pull it through. And then when I get to the end, I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other one, find the middle point, kind of even this out, and just do one stitch right there. All right, so let's do the big reveal. Make sure we didn't accidentally mess up and sew anything to the wrong side. So here is our spacey pouch, and here is the farm animals one. So you'll see, super cute, really small. And I'm going to back the camera up to a little bit of a better angle and show you me putting some shoes in here. All right, thank you for joining me down here by the garbage. So I made this one a little bit smaller so that I can fit probably some of my flats in here. Let's go with these gold metallic kind of chrome shoes that I got really cheap from Charlotte Russe. I'm just going to toss that in there. That's in one pocket. Here's one going to go in the other pocket. So I don't know if you can see in there, but I have my two shoes, and then here's their little divider. Honestly, for these shoes, the divider could stand to be a little bit taller, but I also didn't take into account that I had to fold this over. So if I did and cut this out to be like 12.5 inches tall, probably would have worked a little bit better. So now I'm just going to do the drawstring. And I did go ahead and sew right here just to make sure that it wasn't going to fall apart. Also, yes, I got tired of being cute, so I changed into comfy clothes. So now I have just this cute little drawstring bag. It's got these really cute little animals on it. And for this one, let's do a bigger pair of shoes. I don't know if this one's going to be big enough for any of my You know what? Let's try. Let's try and see if I can get these platform shoes that I've had since junior year of high school. I bought these for a show. I recently re-glittered them. The original glitter was a little bit more of a champagne color than a true gold color. I wore these when we did an awards show, kind of themed Christmas pageant. It was really weird. But the girl that I was going to be next to was like 6'2", and then she also had some ridiculously high platform stilettos, so that's when I needed to get ridiculously high platform stilettos just so I didn't look so tiny next to her, which is not a sentence I ever thought I would say. Anyway, yeah, shoes in bag. Okay, so here I have a pair of glittery stilettos. They're huge, and that's in one pocket. Let's get these in the other one. All right, so they fit in there pretty nicely. I don't know if you can see in there. I hope you can. But now they are nice and separated. So close the drawstring. Drawstring is a little harder to pull with the nylon. I think that's just because there's no like satin edge to it, so there's a little bit more friction. I'm just going to tie this closed. Cute little bow, and here we have another sack. So the reason I sewed these up differently, and I actually like how I did this one better, so by sewing this up so that the seam is parallel to sewing up the sides of the bag, that way. I hope that made sense. It makes the shoes kind of stand up a little bit better in here, and it just makes them look a little bit nicer in here. I don't know if it's actually going to have much of an effect on like the storage of them and transporting them and all that, but it just looks a little bit better and it looks a little bit cleaner as opposed to this one where the kind of inside pocket is perpendicular to how the bag is. So you see how like the bag is formed and like the seams here and here and here, and then in here this kind of goes like front to back instead of side to side. This just kind of makes the shoes basically have to lie down, and that's the way that the pocket kind of matches here. It kind of makes a triangle instead of like a nice kind of rectangular shape kind of thing. I hope you understand what I'm talking about because I don't really know how to explain it. It does the job. It keeps them separated and it keeps them contained, but it just kind of in the bag makes them a little bit more lumpy. So I might actually switch out these shoes for a pair that is not a stiletto so that I don't have to worry about them poking through. And I think from going forward I'm going to make all of my pouches like this. So yeah, that is this video. I hope you found this entertaining, if nothing else. So I am now 3 down and I have about 18 to go. No, 19 to go. Oh boy, wish me luck. So yeah, if you liked this video, go ahead and subscribe, thumbs up, all that stuff that YouTubers are supposed to say. I'm working on a couple of stash busting projects. I have an idea for one. Don't know if it's going to happen because it seems like a lot of work and I don't have a whole lot of space. We'll see. That might happen in the next couple of months. I have a couple months before I need to move out. So this is a really great stash busting project. I'm excited to get all of these done, and who knows, if I am not absolutely sick and tired of making these by the end of it, I might even make a couple and sell them on like Etsy, or I don't know, people sell stuff on Depop now. So yeah, if that's something you would be interested in, follow me over on my Instagram, which is Thread and Needlefish. I'll list that here. I will have more updates kind of on this, and if you want to see all of the other fabrics that I have picked out for this project, go ahead and give me a follow, and I'll probably post something about that as I get these done. So I'm really glad that I made this project. I would definitely call this a success. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.